This video is sponsored by War Thunder. More on them later. So it's been 1 year since the release of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the long-awaited sequel to the surprise hit Jedi Fallen Order, which came out back in 2019 from respected developer Respawn Entertainment. On April 28, 2023, EA and Respawn dropped the long-awaited sequel to relatively positive reviews. Many people praising the game itself for its exciting upgrades to the gameplay, the story going in directions that the movies and shows were simply afraid to go, and the character of Kestis once again proving to be one of the best Disney have created. But a lot of the positivity around the game's quality was completely overshadowed by the game's performance, leading the game to become a poster child of the release it now fix it later mentality that is plaguing the gaming industry. Now, as most people ran into performance issues in some way or another, it really did tarnish the release of what was otherwise a very good game. Jedi Survivor was the talk of the town in gaming for about a week, but mostly for the wrong reasons. And then it just quickly fell into the realms of obscurity in what was a very strong year for video games. But now that it's been 1 year since the honestly just weird release of Jedi Survivor, and you guys seem to really enjoy my Hogwarts Legacy 1 year later video, I decided to take a look back at Jedi Survivor to replay it all the way through now that the performance side of the game has seemingly been fixed, and we can actually now look at the game for what it was always supposed to be. We're going to dive deep into the story, the characters, the gameplay, and the worlds of Jedi Survivor and uncover if its short-lived time in the spotlight was deserved, or hiding behind its performance issues was one of the best Star Wars games ever made. Well, let's find out. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by War Thunder, our first sponsor on the channel, which is pretty exciting. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's also free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. You can join over 70 million players in PvP battles with a crazy amount of content to discover. You can immerse yourself in super intense combat with detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound design that puts you right there in the action. Featuring over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships across 10 nations, ranging from 1920s biplanes and armored cars to the fighter jets and tanks of today, there is tons to explore. War Thunder also features one of the most sophisticated vehicle damage models that I have ever seen in a video game before. Vehicles are modeled down to their individual components such as fuel tanks, engines, weapons, and crew, and all of them are susceptible to damage or disabling from enemy fire, and different types of armor, shells, and missiles behave like their real-world counterparts, so you could expect realistic results. There is also in-depth customization featuring a comprehensive customization system with camos, historical markings, decorations, and even community-created ones as well. If I was to say there was one thing in this game that I really did enjoy, that was using the tanks and just going absolutely crazy. I had a lot of fun doing it. Now you can sign up and play War Thunder for yourself using my link in the pinned comment or the video description. New players and those who haven't played in 6 months will also receive a bonus pack which includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account. So get in quick using those links as it's only available for a limited time, and a big thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. When it comes to Jedi Survivor, the thing I love about the game the most is perhaps the story and the characters that we explore it with, so this portion of the video is probably going to be pretty big. Jedi Survivor's story is honestly one of the best stories we've seen under Disney's Star Wars reign, which I know isn't really saying much, but it must be acknowledged. So yeah, to say I'm not on good terms with Star Wars right now is a bit of an understatement, but that's why I find Survivor so interesting. Because although my interest in Star Wars is at an all-time low, replaying the game 1 year on from its release, I had an amazing time and was actually reminded why Star Wars can be so great. Jedi Survivor's story, it feels like a gem in a sea of shit with Star Wars at the moment, and there are many reasons as to why. First and foremost, the story and the characters. Jedi Survivor's story is one of obsession, anger, and loss. It's not an uplifting story and is definitely the darker middle entry that we see prevalent with many trilogies, because yes, Respawn are working on a third game, so this will be a middle entry of a trilogy. Now, Fallen Order kept its story focused and streamlined, but Survivor went a little more ambitious, expanding the Star Wars galaxy beyond what we knew and bringing to life characters of the past into the present. And at times, it definitely does bite off a little more than it can chew, but overall is intriguing from start to finish. Cal Kestis is no longer the boy he was in Fallen Order. He's a man, a survivor, withered and worn down by a fight with impossible odds. He's conflicted and unsure if the fight is still worth it, and after a newfound hope that leads him to losing everything, it sends him down a dark path. And I'll give the game credit, they were not afraid to go dark and ballsy as hell with this story. So let's actually go through that story. The story picks up 5 years after the events of Jedi Fallen Order, with Cal as a prisoner on Coruscant, mournfully looking at what used to be the Jedi Temple. It's clear from just this opening scene with no dialogue that this isn't the wide-eyed Padawan from Fallen Order. He's older, battle-worn, but the mere sight of the Jedi Temple tells us that the scars of his past are still very present. The 5 years between Fallen Order and Survivor have definitely changed him. That much is for certain. Now, I'd be remiss to ignore that there is a book called Jedi Battle Scars that bridges the 5-year gap between the two games, but honestly, it's absolutely awful. The author, Sam Maggs, was too busy self-inserting herself into the story and making it a 50 Shades of Grey novel and completely botching the characters in the process. You think I'm kidding, but I'm not. It was really, really weird. Jedi Survivor does a 10 times better job in retroactively telling you what Cal went through in that 5 years, and I know someone is going to mention the book, so I felt like I just had to bring it up here. Anyway, we get some good environmental storytelling and get a good grasp as to the state of the galaxy as Cal is escorted through the streets of Coruscant, but it becomes clear that Cal wasn't actually prisoner at all, and the guards escorting him are Saw Gerrera's men. All of this was actually a planned infiltration to access classified military Imperial intel. Everything goes according to plan until it doesn't. Cal is then forced to navigate the underbelly of Coruscant to continue the mission, and along the way we get introduced to Bode Akuna, who is a new member of the crew, and a very, very important character for this game. Bode and Cal bond as we learn that everything Bode does is to provide and protect his daughter Carter, planting seeds for major plot points of the game further down the line. Cal and Bode eventually reach the Senator and access the classified intel, and it becomes clear to Cal that despite all the fighting he's done against the Empire, they've never been more powerful, and he hasn't even made a dent. Even after everything he's done, he hasn't changed anything. The Senator mentions to Cal that he should surrender, as he simply just can't win. He can't beat the Empire, but Cal in this moment remains hopeful. Upon leaving, Cal and the crew are stopped by the Ninth Sister, who survived her encounter with Cal in the first game. This fight acts as a way to tell us how powerful Cal has become. He barely scraped by her in the first game, but he absolutely kicks her ass here and kills her. Cal and Bode then escape Coruscant separately, and along the way we realize that the Mantis crew of Sia, Grease and Merrin separated at some point across the past 5 years. And due to the ship's condition from the getaway, Cal heads to Kobo to seek Grease's help to fix it. Once we arrive on Kobo, which acts as the main hub planet for the remainder of the playthrough, we're introduced to the Bedlam Raiders and their leader Ravis, a Gendai, a species that can live for centuries. He's looking for a key which will come into play later on in the story. Cal and Grease then reunite, and it's incredibly touching. Grease was great comic relief in Fallen Order, but this time round Respawn gave the character much more depth, and through dialogue we get the gaps of the time jump filled in. The Mantis crew split up for their own unique reasons. This is where the most important scene so far takes place.
We've got plenty of time to fix the Mantis. You are what I want to talk about.
I'm fine. Sooner we get moving, the better.
And then what, you're gonna go find some trouble with Saw Gerrera?
Maybe. Yeah, one of us has to keep fighting.
That's funny. That's the exact same thing you said the day we all split up.
Yeah, because I... All right, listen. I know you all had your reasons for leaving. But walking away isn't an option for me. I have to hold the line.
And where's that gotten you, Cal? I wish things were different, but you keep losing people. And you yourself said that the Empire's growing stronger every day. Now maybe it's time for you to be something more than a lightsaber. Think about yourself. Settle down. Find a home.
What? Home, Grease. There is no home. Home was the Order. It was my teacher. It was everyone I lost. What does their sacrifice mean if I go and I just give up and stick my head in the sand?
I know you were dealt a bad hand, but you gotta take it from me. Somebody who had to learn the hard way. You gotta know when to walk away from a rigged game. Otherwise, you are gonna end up losing something you could never replace.
Cal feels like he can't walk away from the fight despite how hopeless it feels, as he's a Jedi and he feels it would be betraying those that fell in the fight. But Grease, caring for Cal and understanding he's fighting a rigged game, urges him to stop, to find a home, and reluctantly, Cal actually takes his advice on board. And this conversation essentially sets all the chess pieces in place for Cal's character throughout the rest of the story. Cal then stumbles across an old Republic droid that has been stuck hidden away for centuries. Now, this is a little bit of a contrived scenario, and I did slam The Last of Us Part 2 for contrived scenarios, so to be fair, I thought I'd highlight Survivor has similar tendencies with its story, and this is one of them. Now, due to Cal's unique psychometry abilities, he's able to see a vision upon touching the droid, showing a character called Centauri Kree, a High Republic Jedi, and a key that matches what Ravis was looking for. Cal meets up with Grease again, and Bode is there too. It's here where Tanalorr is mentioned, a lost planet and a legend. Cal then heads to the forest array with the key, and it leads him to a man in a Bacta tank seemingly hidden away for quite some time. Using Cal's psychometry ability, we're thrown into a vision of two High Republic Jedi, Centauri Kree and Dagan Gera. Dagan discovered Tanalorr, confirming that Tanalorr is in fact a real place, not just a legend. And in this vision, Dagan notices Cal, and through the Force, they share a moment, and Cal, assuming Dagan could be a potential ally in his fight against the Empire, sets him free. We then get a decent exposition dump from Dagan himself, saying that the Jedi betrayed him with his discovery of Tanalorr, and in his anger, he bleeds his lightsaber and fights Cal. After the fight, Ravis shows up to collect Dagan, as the two of them made an oath centuries ago, after Dagan defeated Ravis in combat. This explains why Ravis was looking for a key when we met him earlier. Cal, Bode, and Grease then discuss the idea of Tanalorr as something they need to explore, as it can act as a safe haven for all of them hidden away from the Empire once and for all. And this is basically the launch pad for the entire story. Cal and the crew then head to Jeddah to meet up with Seer and begin to put the Mantis crew back together. After Cal runs into some trouble, Merrin finds him to take him to Seer. We get some really nice moments between Cal and Merrin, and it becomes clear in this moment through Merrin that Cal does need to walk away from the fight against the Empire, as he's still battling with the idea of leaving the fight. But now, Grease and Merrin have both told him what he needs to do. They've just done it in their own ways. There's also follow-up on the seeds planted in the first game, with there being a little something more between Cal and Merrin. And the fact that they edge closer here is a visual representation of Cal starting to leave his Jedi ideologies behind in the form of no attachment. I always liked this, as it's a visual representation of Merrin helping Cal begin to distance himself from his obsession with fighting the Empire and changing his path. We eventually make our way to Seer, but first we learn that Ino Cordova is still alive and working together with her. This comes as a massive surprise, as Cordova was integral to the first game and assumed to be dead. But upon reflection, it's never actually said that he is, so his appearance here does make sense. Cal and Seer then finally reunite, and Seer has been hard at work rebuilding the Jedi archives. Her goal is to allow the legacy of the Jedi to live on, and she also helps with the Hidden Path, an underground network that helps conceal former Jedi and Force sensitives from the Empire. So now the entire Mantis crew is back together, plus Bode, and now it's time to find Tanalorr. Before we do though, Bode offers Cal a blaster. Not only does this serve as a new game mechanic, but story and character-wise, it actually also makes a lot of sense. It's another visual representation of Cal distancing himself from traditional Jedi ideologies and practices, as it's those ideologies that are stopping him from walking away from his hopeless fight against the Empire. So now, through Grease, Merrin, and Bode, We see that slowly not becoming an issue for Cal anymore. Regardless, Cal sets off to Shattered Moon to find a High Republic device, and then to Kobo to find another High Republic device. Through those devices, we learn that Dagan had actually killed multiple Jedi after they tried to conceal these devices from him. It's clear that Dagan was blinded by his obsession with Tanalorr and flew right off the rails, kind of mirroring how Cal was blinded by his obsession with fighting the Empire. This is the first of many parallels between Cal and the game's antagonists. After returning to Jeddah and delivering the devices to Cordova, Cal sets off on a side quest to help out an anchorite. We get a flashback of the time before the Mantis crew split up, showcasing how obsessed Cal had become with fighting the Empire. These flashbacks also help fill in the gaps leading up to the split of the Mantis crew. Fallen Order used flashbacks to great effect, and Survivor, honestly, is no different. We get further progress on Cal and Merrin's relationship, and the fact these two grow even closer becomes very important later in the story. We then find out that the High Republic devices Cal was chasing down are actually no good, but the archives indicate that there was a third, which sets Cal off to Kobo as they assume Dagan will be closing in on it too. Along the way, we have to infiltrate an old Lucrehulk separatist ship, and we're accompanied by Bode, and it's clear along the way that Bode is bringing up topics that the player might find a little strange. He's continuously bringing up Merrin and Cal, which just seems like a weird choice of small talk. This is doubled down on in a cutscene where Bode encourages Cal to embrace his feelings for Merrin, which at the time comes off as friendly advice, as by this point, we're led to believe that Cal and Bode have actually struck up a bit of a bromance, and that they're genuinely becoming friends. Now, knowing where this story goes, this scene is really interesting and it says a lot about Bode's character, so we'll come back to it later. Cal and Bode get separated, and then we come across Ravis, but thankfully, Cal manages to escape thanks to BD-1 being the biggest Giga Chad in the galaxy. Cal eventually eavesdrops on Ravis and Dagan, and it's here we find out more about these two. We find out that Dagan knows where the last compass to Tanalorr is hidden and orders Ravis to go to Shattered Moon. But before we follow Ravis to Shattered Moon, we have to rescue Z, the High Republic droid from earlier, as Dagan stole her hoping that there was more information on the compass's whereabouts in her memory banks. But as Cal goes to rescue Z, he's confronted by Dagan. So it's clear by this point that Dagan can't be reasoned with, and his obsession with Tanalorr has gone too far. So Cal and Dagan fight once again, but the result remains the same as their first encounter. They both walk away from it. Cal then reaches Shattered Moon to confront Ravis, but first we have another Force vision with Centauri and Dagan. We learn how Dagan lost his arm and ended up in a Bacta tank. He was that far gone and consumed by his obsession with Tanalorr that even Centauri Kree turned on him. Now, this moment I found to be slightly underwhelming. The element of mystery surrounding how Dagan ended up in the tank was this big thing that I kind of built up in my head, and then this was the answer. It's not bad by any means, it was just a little underwhelming, which is basically a consistent theme across everything High Republic in this story. Cal then ends up confronting Ravis, and we get more fleshing out on Ravis and Dagan's history, and how they fought side by side until the Jedi betrayed Dagan and imprisoned Ravis for centuries. However, the fall of the Jedi Order freed him, and that's how he came to be on a quest to free Dagan. So they fight, Cal defeats Ravis, having earned his respect. Ravis tells Cal that the compass is in Centauri Kree's observatory. And despite Cal's pleas to get Ravis to join him, having bested him in combat, Ravis denies in favor of a warrior's death, to which Cal is basically forced to oblige. Cal then makes his way to the observatory for a final confrontation with Dagan. Now, Dagan by this point has lost everything due to his pursuit and obsession with Tanalorr. He lost Centauri, the Jedi Order, Ravis, all gone, and it's just him remaining. At this point, Cal is looking at his future if he doesn't stop his obsession with his fight against the Empire. Obsession was Dagan's downfall, and it could very well have been Cal's too. Dagan states that he is going to train disciples in the Force on Tanalorr and cleanse the galaxy with fire when the time is right, as he's obviously quite pissed that the Jedi let the Empire take over the galaxy. But it becomes clear that Dagan just has to be stopped. So Bode and Cal fight Dagan together. Major parts of this fight are actually Force hallucinations enforced by Dagan himself, and Cal uses that against him to defeat him. So Dagan is now dead, bringing to an end what was set up to be the main antagonist of the game. Now, I must admit, the first time I played through the story, I thought this was kind of it and was honestly pretty underwhelmed. The game's marketing focused heavily on who the guy in the back to tank was. You know, we found out and then he just dies like 60 to 70% through the game. But obviously, knowing what I know now, my opinion has altered slightly on a second playthrough. I think the High Republic side of the game, whilst a cool idea and definitely interesting, was still overall a little underwhelming. Dagan, whilst initially one of the more interesting characters we've seen in any Star Wars media, kind of evolved into generic obsessed antagonist man that screams out Tanalorr every 5 minutes. I like Dagan, but the further the story went, I feel like he was more of an obstacle on your pursuit to Tanalorr rather than a massive climactic villain, despite having such strong parallels from a character standpoint with Cal. But obviously that was kind of the plan all along for Respawn given the twist in the third act of the story, but I still am not sure exactly how I feel about that creative decision. And this scene is arguably the most important scene in the entire story up until this point, despite it seeming a little inconsequential.
Maybe Dagan was right.
You sure you're not still, you know?
Think about it. Tanalorr's a fortress. We should use it for the hidden path. Gather allies, train. They'd never see us coming.
I don't know, that seems risky.
Everything is at risk so long as the Empire's around. Besides, you don't want Kata spending her whole life in hiding, do you?
If she's safe, Cal? Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I understand that. But someday, someone's gonna have to face the Empire. Why not us? I bet Cordova can fix this up. Let's head back to Jeddah.
Sure. I'm gonna take a look around first, see if I can find a manual for that thing or something.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So Dagan mentioned that he was going to train disciples in the Force on Tanalorr to cleanse the galaxy with fire, and Cal comes to realize that he may have actually had a point, but instead send the hidden path to Tanalorr to be hidden from the Empire, but also to train and one day possibly take the Empire on and free the galaxy of tyranny for good. And it's this very idea from Cal that sets the game's massive final act into motion. We see Bode uncharacteristically subdued after Cal mentions this idea. Clearly something is going on inside Bode's mind at this point. Bode then elects to stay behind to see if there was some kind of manual in the observatory for the compass. Now, this was actually a really smart idea by the writers, because players would assume that this was just a reason for the player to backtrack back to the Mantis with Cal. So it's purely for gameplay purposes, but obviously, in a writing standpoint, there was another reason, and we'll come back to that later. We then arrive back on Jeddah, and Cordova begins working to repair the damaged compass before they can set a course to Tanalorr. But it's clear that something isn't right. There's another twist to this story to come. Regardless, we have some nice moments with the entire group. Sia confirms that she'll come to Tanalorr with the path, so essentially the entire Mantis family are going to be going to Tanalorr to live happily ever after. But it's clear that Bode is bothered by something. He mentions that it's because of Kata, and with the benefit of a second playthrough, the subtext is so obvious that it makes you wonder how you never caught it the first time you played through the story. We then get a final scene with Cal and Merrin, where it's finally made clear between the two of them that Cal is letting go of the Jedi Order once and for all. And it's time for Cal to make a decision for himself and to be with Merrin. The next morning we talk to Cordova to see how he's going with the compass, but then all hell breaks loose.
Imperial forces coming in from all sides. They found us.
Get your people out. I'll hold them off as long as I can. Bode?
I'm really sorry about this.
Oh. Son. Son, you don't have to do this.
So, any suspicion we had regarding Bode, well, we were right. He sold us out to the Empire, and if you watch the scene back when the alarms go off and you look at Bode's face, you can see he wasn't exactly looking forward to this moment. The first time I played through the game, I definitely felt there was an inevitable twist coming here and Bode was likely going to be a part of it, but I liked the character that much that I was in complete denial that that would actually happen. So when it did happen and resulted in Cordova's death, I definitely was taken aback, despite my suspicions. But the major question we have at this point is why? Why would Bode do this? Well, once we engage in a badass speeder bike chase across Jeddah and throw a scout trooper into a TIE fighter, we get some answers to our questions.
Why? Why, Bode? For this! We fought for that together, and you're just gonna hand it to the Empire!
I'm not giving it to the Empire.
You killed Master Cordova.
Cal, you don't have time for this fight. Something terrible is coming for that archive. Listen to your instincts. You know I'm right.
What have you done?
If you want to keep your family safe, you get them out of there. Right now.
What have you done? You can't be.
You're not the only one who survived.
So it turns out that not only was Bode a traitor, but he was also a Jedi survivor.
He said it! He said it!
So yes, the title of the game didn't just mean Cal, it also meant Bode, and to be honest, it probably could have meant Dagan, could have meant Seer, could have meant Cordova, hell, even Merrin. The fact Bode was a traitor wasn't overly surprising, but what was that he was a Jedi who survived Order 66 just like Cal, which is a pretty good twist and definitely sets up one hell of a final act for this story. Not only that, but remember when Bode said he was going to look around for a manual for the compass after defeating Dagan? Well, that was obviously a big fat porcupine. He stayed back to grab Dagan's lightsaber for the upcoming conflict. Because in this cutscene right here, Bode made up his mind that he was going to betray Cal, because I don't believe that was his plan all along. But when Cal insisted on the hidden path going to Tanalorr, that was the final straw for Bode. Protecting his daughter at all costs is his main motivation, and Cal was going to get in the way of that, taking the hidden path to Tanalorr. Regardless, Cal and Bode fight, and then Cal is incapacitated. And then surprisingly, we have a change of perspective, and we play as Seer as the Empire attacks Jeddah. And it's clear she's a little more powerful than Cal, and you can lay waste to stormtroopers with ridiculous ease. And I gotta admit, this section of the game, it's a hell of a lot of fun. Seer then takes the Jedi contact codes and gives them to BD-1 to take to the Mantis to keep away from the Empire, but Seer stays behind, and I think we all knew why. So following up on the ending of the first game, Vader has a score to settle with Seer. Obviously, Vader is far more powerful, but the fact Seer has let go of her fear puts her at an advantage that most people don't have when fighting Vader. As a result, she actually puts up a decent fight, but still to nobody's surprise, Vader wins. And as we come to the realization that Seer is about to die, Cal finds her and dies in his arms, with her final two words being Cal and Trilla. I absolutely loved the character of Trilla, so the fact she wasn't forgotten about in this moment is a big thumbs up from me. Now, as I actually care for these characters, which isn't something I'm used to saying under Disney's Star Wars, Seer's death actually did hit me pretty hard, mainly due to the reactions of the rest of the Mantis crew. Seeing Cal, Merrin, Grease, and BD-1 upset, it makes me angry. It's from this moment on that the game's story takes a much darker turn, and I've got to say I absolutely love where it goes. It's obviously time to hunt Bode down, and due to a locator beacon on his ship, the crew head to Nova Garon to find him. And if you check the game's menus, you'll notice it's changed, fitting the darkness consuming Cal at this moment. We find the base commander, Lank Denvik, who is quick to learn that Cal isn't messing around. We then learn that this is the person that sent Bode to infiltrate Cal's team, and who Bode was reporting to. The darkness begins to consume Cal and he knocks Denvik out and uses his outfit to stealth around the base. Which I've got to say, it's a little hard to believe that Cal can mingle with Imperial officers even though Cal is one of the most wanted men in the galaxy. It must be the mullet and the mustache letting him blend in. I don't know. Cal ends up finding his way to Bode's headquarters, but he finds Carter there first. Eventually, Bode shows up, and then every question we had up until this point gets answered by Bode himself. He specialized in intelligence during his time as a Jedi, and after the Purge, he used those skills to disappear. It also explains the potential plot hole of him being able to stand in a room with 3 Jedi and his cover not be blown. It also explains why he knew more about Cal's feelings toward Merrin earlier in the story. After the Purge, Bode went into hiding. He fell in love and had Carter, and her mother was then killed by an Inquisitor. Ever since then, Bode realized he couldn't run forever, so he cut a deal to keep Carter safe. So he worked with Denvik, who he'd known through his time in intelligence in the Clone Wars, and that's how Bode ended up infiltrating Cal's crew. After this much needed exposition dump, Bode escapes with Carter, and Cal, understandably feeling used and betrayed, finally taps into the dark side, which makes Cal absurdly powerful. This is one of the best parts of the entire game, and it was really ballsy of Respawn to allow a heroic character stoop this low in his quest for revenge. Cal almost takes it too far by murdering Denvik on the spot, although he definitely deserved it. Merrin acts as Cal's anchor and pulls him back from taking that extra step to the dark side. It's this moment right here as to why they've been building the relationship between Cal and Merrin. Merrin is his anchor. Without her, he's screwed and he'd be essentially lost to the dark side. Thanks to Merrin's influence, Cal leaves Denvik behind for Vader to take care of instead. So Bode has now escaped and is on his way to Tanalorr, but the Mantis crew discover that there is another way to reach Tanalorr, which requires aligning arrays on Kobo to create a flight path through the Abyss. This is another one of those major plot contrivances that the story relies on to keep it going. Like I mentioned earlier, first it was Cal stumbling across the droid that holds the key that Ravis was looking for. Then it was finding 2 High Republic artifacts to find out that they don't work, just for a third one to be brought up immediately after. And then Bode escaping with the last route to Tanalorr, but then, oh look, there's another way thanks to a hologram left behind by Centauri. It doesn't destroy the story by any means, but like I said, I gave The Last of Us Part 2 an absolute hiding for its reliance on happenstance, so I'm just being fair across different games here. Regardless, Cal aligns the arrays and they fly through the Abyss and reach Tanalorr for a final showdown with Bode. Cal and Merrin confront Bode, but not after talking with Carter first. It's clear by this point that despite all Bode has done, they're still willing to let him stay on Tanalorr with them. All in the name of not turning Carter into an orphan, as obviously you don't want to orphan an innocent child, but also both Cal and Merrin know what it's like to grow up alone. But Bode just can't accept the fact that Carter is never going to be safe with Tanalorr being a haven for those hunted by the Empire. So he fights Cal and Merrin. Cal eventually wins and gives Bode one more chance, but again, he doesn't take it. Realizing that Bode is too dangerous to be left alive, Cal kills him mercilessly. Not only does it serve as what Cal had to do, but it's also a nice bit of revenge for the deaths of Cordova and Seer. So Bode is now dead. Seer and Cordova have been avenged, and Carter is now a member of the Mantis crew. And she is more than likely going to be Force sensitive, meaning that Cal is soon to have an apprentice of his own. We then see Cal pick up Dagon's lightsaber, and it's symbolic for his struggles with the dark side. And it seems as if this is a battle that might not be quite over for him. The game then ends on a funeral sequence, which is very Star Wars, it must be said. We see Cal have a final moment talking to Seer, and it's clear that this character has come a long way. He's grateful for everything Seer did. He's going to build something that can outlast the Empire, but his battle with the dark side also scares the hell out of him. And it's time for him to guide himself through the dark side and the challenges ahead, but also for Carter. And then the game ends on a final shot of Seer's lightsaber amongst the ashes. Whew, that was That was a long one. I am very grateful if you're still here. So this story, I think, was one of the best Star Wars stories we've gotten in recent time, but it definitely does have its problems. The High Republic side of the story went a little underdeveloped in favor of a plot twist, which drove the tail end of the final act. And as I mentioned, there were quite a few contrived scenarios that kept the plot rolling along. But apart from that, I mean, this is a fantastic story about obsession, anger, and loss. It's not a feel-good story by any means, and I am a sucker for a dark story. Always have been. I don't really know what that says about me. But this story did click with me despite its flaws. Cal Kestis remains as one of the best Star Wars characters that we have. By far and away better than 99.9% of the characters Disney have introduced. And honestly, I can't wait to see the conclusion for this character's arc in the third game. Bode was also an excellent character with understandable motives, but I felt things got a little messier with the character in the final moments of the game. The Mantis crew were of course as strong as ever, but this time with more gravitas brought to their characters this time round. Dagon was also great on paper, but in execution, I think there were certain elements of the character that were very underdeveloped, much like the entire High Republic side of the story. Overall, this is a great story with great characters and more than a worthy follow-up to Fallen Order, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. Now that we have the behemoth of a story and character section out of the way, let's get into the more video gamey side of this 1 year later retrospective and get into the gameplay of Jedi Survivor. The gameplay in Fallen Order was Souls-like with its combat and had a Metroidvania approach with how you traverse the map. For better or worse, it was a combination that many people liked, but many people also didn't. Jedi Survivor took those gameplay elements and basically ironed out the kinks. Traversing the map has never felt better. Survivor takes all of the elements from the first game, refines them, but also adds several other ways to get around and chain different moves together that create really satisfying gameplay. Not only can you run along walls as you could in the first game, but you can now dash in multiple ways. You also have a grapple hook and extra force abilities that let you explore areas on the beaten path that might have seemed a little out of reach in the first game. One of the major issues with Fallen Order was the backtracking, specifically on larger maps like Zepho. In Survivor, the developers made a conscious effort to add more shortcuts with backtracking or fast travel points to speed up the process. So when you're exploring more linear planets such as Coruscant or Shattered Moon, you don't have to spend half an hour walking your way back to the Mantis. The levels were designed much better this time round, meaning that the general gameplay loop of exploring these amazing worlds is just more enjoyable. One of the biggest upgrades between the two games though is without question the lightsaber combat. It's extremely similar to the first game at its core, but there's just so much more there for you to master. You now have 5 lightsaber stances to master instead of 2, each of them with their own unique upsides and downsides. The single lightsaber is the general all-rounder. The double-edged lightsaber is better for crowd control. The blaster stance is good for when you want to keep your distance. The crossguard stance is better for those with patience that would rather deal heavier blows less often. And the dual lightsaber stance, which is my favorite, is basically for the aggressive crackheads that just want to throw down like there's no tomorrow. And each of the 5 stances has a skill tree of their own, allowing players to prioritize their favorite stances and focus in on them. To aid that, there's also skill trees for force powers and survival, and having played the game twice now, I realized that what you focus on does matter. You do unlock a lot of skill points, but you definitely do not get enough to be a jack of all trades. You need to focus in on specifics and cater to your playstyle to unlock full skill trees. So the game definitely has longevity with multiple playthroughs. I also found that certain boss fights were drastically easier this time round due to my approach on my second playthrough, putting an emphasis on the dual and blaster stance. There was a legendary boss that I just couldn't beat on my first playthrough, and this time I beat it on my second try. I wouldn't say my skill had improved that much, if at all. The difficulty was also the same, but my stances were different, and that's not a coincidence. Your stances matter depending on your enemy, so it's important to try stances out and see what suits your playstyle and the enemies you have trouble with, and then run with it. Now, boss fights are also a massive part of the game, and I think the boss fights for the most part are great. There are some, however, that have a one-hit kill unblockable move, and given how inconsistent the hit registration and dodging can be on unblockable moves, it means it can get incredibly frustrating. Fighting legendary creatures like the Rancor or the Spawn of Ogdo Bogdo. The Spawn of Ogdo Bogdo, I get it's kind of a meme, but the Rancor was not, but the one-hit kill registration was just no. Fighting legendary creatures was 10 times harder than fighting actual proper bosses like Dagon, Bode, or Ravis for this very reason. So although the boss fights in the game in general are great, the inconsistencies with the dodging and hit registration could make them frustrating when you were doing the boss battles for the legendary creatures. What wasn't frustrating was the general lightsaber gameplay just around the world. Cal is significantly more powerful in this game, and it means you can lay waste to basic enemies with ease, and it's a ton of fun. It's in these encounters where you really see just how much there is to the gameplay in comparison to the first game. It also helps that the lightsaber feels more like a lightsaber in this game compared to the baseball bat it felt like in Fallen Order. Now, making the lightsaber combat more violent was actually an intentional change by Respawn, and they pushed it as far as they could before Disney got mad. That's not an assumption on my end, I was literally told that by a developer that worked on the game, adding mild dismemberment of human characters as well as brutal sound design. Big shout out to Oscar Cohen, who was the sound designer for Jedi Survivor. Dude absolutely crushed it. And I think this definitely helped the lightsaber gameplay go to the next level, which is the main reason we're here. It's not a stretch to say that this is probably the best lightsaber combat in a video game that we have to date. And to be fair, that should be the reality. As let's be honest, there isn't exactly a lot of competition these days. It's also worth noting that enemy variety is relatively strong. There are several variants of different enemies that all require you to approach them differently, whether it's droids, troopers, creatures, bounty hunters. There are several variants of all of them, and it's honestly pretty impressive. Now, a major gripe that a lot of players had from the first game was the map, and this time round, the map, although very similar to the first game, is much easier to use and a little easier to read. It's not perfect, but still a big improvement and a use case for BD1 in a gameplay sense. Not that he really needs it, as he's still integral to the gameplay, like with delivering Cal stims in a fight, slicing doors, and now some new additions with solving puzzles, but it's nice to see regardless. And it must be said, there are a lot of puzzles to be solved in this game. If you hate puzzles, I understand if you don't like the game. Overall, I think the gameplay of Survivor, it's just a massive step up from Fallen Order. It's not perfect and there are some minor issues, but across the board, Respawn did a great job in making the game bigger, better, and deeper than its predecessor when it comes to gameplay. It's never been more fun to lay waste to herds of enemies as a Jedi in a video game as it is here. One of the stars of the show when it comes to games like this, it's always going to be the worlds that we get to explore. Each and every planet in Jedi Survivor is fully explorable, which is a step up from the first game, as some of the planets were extremely linear and short and were essentially on rails. Some of them we couldn't even go back to. Survivor's locations are expansive, diverse, and most of all, actually fun to explore. The planets in Jedi Survivor include Coruscant, Kobo, Shattered Moon, Jeddah, Nova Garon, and Tanalorr. Now, for that one person that's going to comment on this video and say, well, actually, some of them are moons, just shush, okay? These planets are littered with old separatist ships, swamps, open farmlands, small towns, caves, imperial bases, metropolis undergrounds, open deserts, ancient ruins, factories, and the list goes on and on and on. Now, the planets here are extremely important, as exploring is a major aspect of the way you progress through the game. Respawn added a bunch of extras in this game, such as full customization for Cal, BD1, and the lightsabers. There's also bounties to find and collect, enemies to scan for a cantina minigame, force tears for challenges, there's even fish to find, XP tasks, puzzles, Easter eggs, stims, force echoes, and for some reason seeds to collect for a rooftop garden. Don't know why that's in the game, but it's there if you want it for some reason. Now, given how over the top Respawn went with explorable content, these worlds needed to be fun to explore. And I'm glad to say, even a year on, they still are. I'd say all explorable planets except for Shattered Moon are fun to explore. It actually feels like there are rewards for your exploration, all the time you put in. I still remember the first time I went for some random exploration on Kobo, I stumbled across the spawn of Ogdo Bogdo and found the pink poncho. Like, that's just awesome. I even got sidetracked and found the mullet hairstyle, which I rocked for basically my entire playthrough both times. Like, at worst, when you're exploring, you're leveling Cal up from getting lost on these planets and exploring every nook and cranny. But occasionally there's a little nugget of gold you'll come across that sweetens the exploration even more. Now, I think I still prefer the list of planets from the first game at face value, but there's no denying that Respawn simply improved on the worlds in the sequel by making them more fun to explore, more diverse, and overall are just designed better and more practically for seamless and less tedious exploration. Now, when you finish your playthrough, there is still a lot more exploring to be done. Once you finish the main story, you can go back to key areas from the story and you'll see new Force echoes appear. And these give you insight into Bode's betrayal as the story played out, offering you a new perspective into Bode's mind at certain moments throughout the story. There are a ton of these to find on almost every planet, and I'd highly recommend checking them all out. Overall though, I think the worlds of Jedi Survivor are just a standout. Look, you can have the best story with the best gameplay, but if the worlds aren't up to scratch, then it's definitely going to be a huge buzzkill on the entire experience. But gladly, Survivor doesn't have that problem. These worlds are some of the richest and most expansive worlds we've seen in any Star Wars game, and I hope Respawn go bigger and better in the next. So to bring this video all together, Jedi Survivor 1 year later, without the noise of the performance issues, I think this is definitely one of the best Star Wars games that we have, and I do think its quality was lost a little in the controversy. The story is dark but flawed. The characters are incredibly strong and some of the best we've seen in the past decade across all Star Wars mediums. The gameplay provides one of the best Jedi fantasies that we have, and the worlds we get to explore were vibrant, massive, and full of things to do. It does have some minor flaws, make no mistake, but Jedi Survivor is a bit of a gem and, without a doubt, one of the best Star Wars games ever made. Just before we go, a quick reminder to check out War Thunder through the links below, either in the description or the pinned comment. Remember, it's free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, and if you want to secure the bonus goodies, get in quick because they're only there for a limited time. And again, a final thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video.